It's been incredible how much I've learned from my patients and how much they have empowered me to do more learning so that I can better help them deal with the issues that they present to me. Hi, I'm Deacon from Neurvana Naturopathic Medicine. I grew up in Sylvan Lake, Alberta. I moved there actually in grade 5 from Drumheller, Alberta. I was actually born in Brooks, Alberta, but spent most of my life in Sylvan Lake, Alberta, and central Alberta, a little lake community, so it was a great place to grow up. No children, 3 cats, Miroki, Seth, and Evan. So they keep my life quite busy. I developed a chronic health issue in my early 20s while I was attending university. A lot of it stemmed from head traumas that I'd had, developmental traumas, and then some kind of unknown, mysterious inflammatory symptoms that triggered for me. It's actually one of the reasons I do what I do and I specialize in what I specialize in, was it took me a long time to figure out the moving parts of my health issues, and conventional medicine didn't have a proper treatment or anything that they could really help me with, aside from medication therapies to try to band-aid some of my symptoms. But yeah, it really took me a lot of work to learn and figure out, what the root cause of my issues were so that I could get back to living healthy again. So yeah, it was a trying time for me, but it was one of the best things that's ever happened to me, to be honest. I had a lot of physical symptoms, mainly a lot of fatigue, headaches, and muscle weakness. Mentally, I had a lot of brain fog, cognitive difficulties, so memory retrieval, memory storage, focus, concentration, and some higher level executive functions. So school was always something that came really easily to me, but during that time actually was quite difficult to manage. Emotionally, I had a lot of anxiety. Most days when I was at the peak, I was having a panic attack almost every day. I was having depression as I was flipping into what we call dorsal vagal state, which is an overwhelmed state in the nervous system where we go into faint or freeze. And so I was getting a lot of hopelessness, helplessness, depression, and at times suicidal ideations as well. It affected my school. It was a lot more work and a lot more time required to put in just to kind of get by. Previous to that, I was always having big ideas and big plans, and that kind of dissipated because I had this situation right in front of me that had to have my full attention at it. Relationships suffered as well, obviously. It was hard to connect and interact with other people. I was self-medicating with things like alcohol as well to try to cope, and so that created difficult relationship dynamics as well. The starting point of resolving my chronic health conditions was to actually look at my brain. I knew that this was an issue of my nervous system. I ended up discovering a neuroimaging technique called quantitative EEG, which is an electrical kind of map of electrical function in the brain. And that actually led me to understand what was affecting my brain. Head injuries was a big component to that. So utilizing techniques like functional neurology and neurofeedback helped me resolve that. Now, in terms of the inflammatory symptoms I was having, which was causing massive energy deficiency, metabolic related issues, I had gotten bit by a tick previous to this in Nicaragua, and ended up getting 2 infections from that, as well as having a bunch of water damage building exposure as well in some of the places that I was living. So I had to actually go and fix those problems, treat the infections, and then resolve the symptoms through modulating the immune system and going on to peptide therapies, which allowed me to basically repair my brain again, kind of repair the hardware of my brain, so to speak. It was a little bit of a hardware, software reprogramming that finally got me back on track. Now, I utilize maintenance strategies, especially in the winter, things like ice bathing almost daily, keeping up with exercise, and keeping a fairly strict diet that sits kind of around the low lectin, low amylose diet. that actually helps me maintain most of the changes that I've had. I also utilize neurofeedback on a weekly basis as well to just keep things optimal up in my brain. So I wanted to become a functional medicine practitioner because I knew that a lot of other people out there were suffering from problems like what I suffered with, and I wanted to be able to help them. I feel like when you learn something for yourself, it's your job and responsibility to then share it with the world and share it with as many people as you can. So that was why I really wanted to pursue that. The influence that really started me on this path was actually my grade 11 and grade 12 bio teacher, Mr. Moyer. He taught me to critically think and to look deeper and question things, and he was always great about being curious about things. He didn't have all the answers, and he was willing to admit that. He really opened my mind to this idea of critically thinking, being curious, being humble, admitting we don't know everything, and that's what's allowed me to actually get to this point. Well, I went to school in quite a few places. I graduated high school in H.J. Cody High School in Sylvan Lake. I then went to Red Deer College in Red Deer, Alberta. That's where I started my degree, my Bachelor of Science. I originally started in engineering because I really loved the idea of how systems integrated together and how things worked. And then I quickly realized that I was fascinated by the human body and realized we had so much to learn in regards to how it functioned and what caused it to dysfunction and cause disease and disorder. So I actually transferred and did a Bachelor's of Science in Medical Sciences with a specialty in neuroscience. And then I went forward and did a Master's in Biomedical Sciences, again with a focus in neuroscience through the University of Greenwich. I graduated at the University of Alberta in 2013, and then in University of Greenwich in 2014. And then I did my doctorate and finished that in 2016. I'm a board certified associate fellow of the BCIA for neurofeedback. I'm also an approved mentor for bio and neurofeedback. I decided to do extra training in functional medicine, anti-aging, regenerative and functional medicine, and neurofeedback because I found that those were the best key areas to actually learn what root causes can affect the human body and the nervous system. So I was always about a root cause kind of approach because that's what I had to do for my health, is I really had to dig in and figure out, okay, what were the driving factors in my illness? And I think if you don't do that, all you're really doing is band-aiding, as long as you can and hoping that symptoms stay away. That was something I didn't have the luxury. These band-aid effects just did not work. So that was why I chose to do the training that I did. And when I discovered chronic inflammatory response syndrome, I needed to do extra training in that because it's very grueling, very in-depth, very robust information. There's a lot to learn. I actually laughed because when I was doing my service training, it was like doing a PhD in like 1 month. I remember putting in like over 160 hours just in that, not including my work to actually grasp the concept and become more of an expert in it. So I've done a couple different trainings in that because there's always more to learn. I've been practicing in this field since 2014. I started as a neurofeedback clinician before I got my doctorate and moved into more of the practitioner role with functional medicine. We've mapped and I've looked at and analyzed well over 20,000 brain maps and MRIs, and so I have a lot of experience with almost everything related to the nervous system. I specialize in conditions and symptoms that are affected or caused by the nervous system and the immune system, mostly in looking at neurology-like approaches, psychology, psychiatry, those fields of study that really encompass how the brain works. So this is, like I like to say, the hardware, the software, and the firmware of the brain. And then because of the drastic effect that the immune system has on the behavior of certain cells in the brain, it's actually essential to have a really solid grasp of immunology as well. So, while I specialize in anything that affects the immune system, anything that affects or causes autoimmunity, and then conditions of the central nervous system as well. And this includes things like trauma, PTSD, and physical injury associated with traumatic brain injuries, concussion, and post-concussion syndromes. It's a very integrative approach. So it starts with an assessment of the brain, quantitative EEG, and sometimes an MRI. From there, we decide and figure out what we think the factors are that are affecting the brain. We figure out the underlying causes of what's driving that. And then we just basically run extra tests and utilize other tools to assess, exactly what's going on. And then we can go through and resolve those issues. I have a 3-stage process. The first one's assessment. So you're looking at the nervous system, you're looking at heart rate variability, MRIs, testing, immune system function, hormone function, gut functioning. And you go through this assessment phase where we figure out what's actually driving the issue. And then we go into resolution phase. And that's where we resolve these underlying problems to the best of our abilities. And then after that, usually by the end of that phase, people's symptoms are significantly better, and sometimes they're gone completely. And then we go into what's called maintenance phase. So stage 3 is maintaining the changes we've made. So everything we've learned through the journey of steps 1 and 2, we can actually integrate protocols into place that allow people to maintain those changes long-term as well. Functional medicine is vastly important in healthcare because in my opinion, most people need to know what's affecting them. Right? If we don't know, we can't do anything about it. So having the knowledge to be able to know what's going on is powerful and impactful, and it actually allows people to make significant changes. So it's about kind of putting you back in the driver's seat of your health. So that's what I love about functional medicine is I'm not doing anything magical. I'm just simply showing you knowledge that you don't have access to that allows you to then take back your power and your health, and you'll know the behaviors and the things you'll need to do to get better, feel better, and stay better. The number one thing I wish more people knew about functional medicine is how significant it can be in almost every single health issue. This includes complex things like dementias, MS, debilitating autoimmune disease, psychiatric disorders. No matter how severe an issue is, it can be improved, and like I say, in a lot of cases it can be resolved. I've seen some nothing short of magical results with utilizing approaches like this, and diseases that we 10, 20 years ago didn't even think were changeable or fixable at all. And people resolve them. So really, I just wish people knew how powerful it really was, and that it's never really too late to start working on your health and improving it, no matter what diagnosis you have, from my experience. Practitioner-client relationships are so important because we, as coming from a patient side, we have a lot of blind spots. There are things that we don't see or we don't know, that it's really helpful to have someone from an objective lens look and assess, what may be going on that you're missing. So because we're in our own head all day, we don't always see everything clearly. So having a trusting relationship with that, being able to be open and honest about what's going on, what behaviors you may be involved in, I find is incredibly helpful. We need to know what's going on to the full extent if we're going to be able to help you. So I always say, especially if you're dealing with mental health issues as well, is you need to have a trusting relationship with your practitioner. If you don't, you need to find somebody else. If you feel like you can't be 100% open, you need to find somebody else, because it's only going to slow your positive results. I think what's missing from the current field of medicine, to be quite frank, is compassionate care and actually listening to the patients. It's amazing how much you can learn about somebody just by listening to them and what's going on. I find far too many people are discounted by doctors, either being told it's all in their head, there's nothing wrong with them, And it's just, I think the compassionate care of trusting the patient's feedback and how they're feeling, and then a lot of times they'll tell you exactly what the problem is if you're listening close enough. And listening is more than just listening to words. It's being an active listener and listening to the other things that the client isn't saying directly. I think just having that compassionate care is a big one. The other thing I find is missing is time. Doctors just do not have the time anymore to be able to have this relationship, this therapeutic relationship that allows for people to take the time to really explain what's going on, and allow doctors to be able to help them figure it out. When you have a 5-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute appointment, it's very difficult to do that. So I think compassionate care and time is really what's missing, and a lot of doctors are incredibly burnt out because of this. My favorite thing about working with my clients is just how much they teach me, how they empower me to look deeper, think more. I'm always trusting their feedback, even if they're doing something and they're getting symptoms or they're getting side effects that I'm like, they shouldn't really be experiencing this, but I dig deeper, and it's been incredible how much I've learned from my patients and how much they have empowered me to do more learning so that I can better help them deal with the issues that they present to me. The accomplishment I'm most proud of being a functional medicine practitioner is how many lives I've been able to impact for the better. And it makes me feel very, very rewarded and very happy for the individuals when they're able to see just how much power they have over their health. When I'm not working, I love basically all types of sports. So I play baseball, I love playing disc golf, golfing, hiking, camping, hanging out with friends. I'm very social. So I like that social interaction piece, eating great food, cold bathing. Most mornings you'll find me in my backyard in my deep freeze, in my ice bath. And yeah, like I say, all other sorts of exercise. I also hunt in the hunting season as well. It's where we source most of our meat from. So that's another kind of passion of mine as well. Most favorite trip or vacation I've ever been on was in 2013 when we did a 3.5-month backpacking trip through Central America. So we started in Mexico, went to Belize, down into Honduras, over to Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica. Very impactful time in my life. My favorite food is almost any food. I'm a big fan of really good seafood. I'm also a really big fan of anything Mexican or Spanish as well. My favorite health podcast is probably the Huberman Labs podcast. He's a neuro-ophthalmologist that teaches at Stanford Medical University. It's phenomenal. All things nervous system, all things human body, all great tips on how to hack your health. It's just great. My favorite health brand is Neurvana. And that's about it.